Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Best Ever You show. I'm your host, Elizabeth, here with new author Amber Wardell. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for being here, teaching us all about your new book. I don't know if you have a copy or not with you, but I'll just tell everybody the copy is there you go. I see you have
I
it.
do. I've
Hold
got
that
it.
up.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. It's got potato chips on the cover. Probably one of the first books ever to have potato chips on the cover. I was going to sit here and like eat Doritos the whole time I was talking to you, but it's called Beyond Self Care Potato Chips. We're going to learn about why you titled it that here. But welcome, welcome,
Ah,
welcome.
thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, what's it like being a new author?
Uh, it's been really exciting. As you know, it's a bunch of emotions all tied up together. And I was just reflecting on this morning that, this book, I finished writing it almost 2 years ago, and I feel like I'm almost a completely different person. Like I said, a few Ambers ago wrote this. And so it's interesting though. It's really cool to get to re-experience the book now, like as it's coming out, that feeling of like you're falling back in love with it because it's finally coming out. So that's been really cool. I've been enjoying that process.
Yeah, it takes a while for books to come out, doesn't it? From when you sign that contract. What's that moment like? What was that like for you? Like, oh my God, I got a book deal. Yay.
Oh man, it was really great. Do you mind if I tell a little story about my agent first?
Please tell everything.
So when I was first shopping around looking for an agent, I had a completely different book than this one. It was a book about my miscarriages and spiritual warfare and kind of my journey through my faith through that. And so I was shopping that book around, and the agent that I wanted, her name was Rochelle Gardner. She was my top choice, and she got back to me almost immediately, and she was like, "It's a no." and, and I was like,
No, don't you love that? It's like,
yeah. She was like, "It's a no, but do you have time for a phone call? I would really love to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay, never
yeah.
not take an opportunity." So I got on the phone with her, and she's like, "Listen, I actually follow you on TikTok, and I love your voice. I love your message. I love the things that you talk about on your platform, which have nothing to do with this book you're trying to publish." And so she said, "Do you have any ideas that might be more aligned with what you talk about on your platforms? Because I think I would want to represent that." So it was the next day I pitched self-care potato chips to her, and she said, "Yes, yes, I want it." And so she signed me, and then I got it written within about 6 months, and we pitched it. And when HCI picked it up, that was probably one of the best days of my life.
Yeah, I have that feeling too. Like this is just a great life, the best day of your life. I don't know. It's hard to explain, right?
But
It's
man, you've had books on bestseller lists. Like I can't even imagine what that's like.
well, I switched though. I switched over from Hay House to HCI, and I wasn't sure when I got my agent, through that process, if anybody was going to pick me up either, or take my ideas, or switch them, or do whatever. So I get the feeling I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's tricky out there. And I think this totally aligns with who you are. I've been watching you on TikTok and now Instagram, and seeing your bright smiley face every day, and listening to what you're saying. And I think I'm probably way older than you. I just turned 55, and I relate, and it's cool because I think you have a message that is transcending all ages and spaces and places and things like that. So I'm pretty happy to have you on Best Ever You, because I know that you're aware of that, and you're not just geared toward people your age. Some of us, I look back and I was reading your book, and I'm like, been there, done that, been there, done that, been there, done that a little bit. I asked my husband, I'm like, how do I go onto this show without a been there, done that attitude? I'm like, I'm not doing that. I want to hear what you have to say, because I completely relate to you, though. I just wanted you to know that, but I don't have a been there, done that. There's a lot of things that you're doing that I haven't done. There are almost 1 million people following you on TikTok right now, listening to your navigating your life with children, your husband, you're an author, you're I want to say therapist. I don't know if that's the exact right word, but it's actually doctor. Yeah,
Yes.
there's a PhD that goes with you as well here, and other things.
Yay.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just amazing. So I'm glad
Can I
you're.
say?
Yeah,
Oh,
please
sorry. Can I
talk.
say I appreciate that so much because, so I'm going to be 40 in January. My husband is 15 years older than me.
Yeah.
So he's in his 50s. And when I was writing the book, I very much have this millennial mindset, right? I'm like, oh, I identify as a millennial. And so when I was writing the book, it's very much geared toward millennial women. And even on the back cover copy, it talks about, millennial women. And the publicist that I'm working with, we had a phone call the other day, and she was like, she's your age, and she said, why are you positioning this toward millennials? And I said, well, because I am one, and I feel like I'm probably not going to be super relatable to other people. And she said, I resonate with this, and that meant so much to me because uh, my next project that I'm working on is called Brave Beyond 30, and I'm talking about what it's like navigating getting older, aging out of the male gaze, and the invisibility that seems to come with that, and how getting older is this strange paradox of, on the one hand, feeling more confident and happy and knowing yourself better than you ever have, and on the other hand, dealing with some confidence issues that are imposed on you by the world that aren't
Yeah.
even yours. And so it
Yeah.
means a lot.
Let me clue you into something though. The male gaze is still there. The males are just a little older. Just letting you know.
Fair
It
enough. Fair
doesn't
enough.
go away. It's just a different generation. Just ages right on with you for some reason. It's like, wow. Anyway, but as a human being who's taken, I have this chapter in one of my books somewhere. I don't know where I wrote it exactly, but I'm taking phone calls in my walk-in closet. And the kids are like 2, 4, 6, and 8, and I'm like, I just need a second, kind of thing. And it's that kind. We're navigating that with tiny children. I was reading something where I think it's maybe the end of your book, actually, not to give it away, everybody, but we'll go there. Spoiler alert. But the end of the book, it's a whole chapter, a whole section on. I'm going to forgive myself in this moment because here's what I just did. I have a lot of those moments. you know,
Yeah.
my kids are 20. They're 20. How old are they this year? They're 23, 25, 27, and 29 now, all with their
Uh,
master's degrees. We've got, girlfriends and fiancés and all this stuff happening. And it's just different. Um, but you still, at moments, they'll teach you something, or, it's a constant learning.
yeah.
Think?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I'm looking forward to those years. There's this funny, it's weird in motherhood spaces because sometimes you see this almost like a split between moms of older kids and moms of younger kids, and there's this weird sense of competition of who has it harder. And it's like, I think it's probably all hard. I think it's probably all hard. It's just a different hard. And, I'm going to very much my kids are 6 and 8. I'm going to very much appreciate them being a little bit older and not as dependent on me for everything. And it's going to be really hard navigating their relationships and their heartaches and them driving away for the first time and like all these things. It's hard, and it's it comes with so much self-doubt and so much
There's no
just
manual for it.
right.
You're navigating as you go through the best that you can do with what, to me, like with what your experiences are to that date or what you don't want to repeat,
Yeah.
sort of. But we had a block party this past weekend, and I wouldn't say we're the grandparents on the block because we don't have any grandkids yet, but we're one of the older. We've been here for 21 years, and the families have turned over. So there were lots of tiny kids running around. There's an
Mhm.
older couple. There's us. There's another older couple. But the kid, so everybody was, 30 on up to 80. And we were all sitting around in a circle with a fire with everybody's kids or grandkids running around in the dark, playing, flashlight tag and all this stuff. And everybody could relate to all of the different things that were going on right now. And they were asking, well, where are your kids anyway? Like, well, one's asleep avoiding this party. one's, one's in Germany, one's, here, there, that kind of thing. But, we heated the pool up to like 90 almost and had all the kids over for a pool party. And it was so much fun to have little kids. So
Yeah.
even when you get older, you miss the little kids. When you're younger, you're like, gosh, I wish they'd grow up. Good luck. Good
Yeah.
luck finding the. You just have to almost. I keep thinking you just have to almost enjoy every moment. That didn't dawn on me though until I dropped the first one off at college. When I
Oh,
dropped the first one off at college, and there were 3 younger ones, I went, oh, did I do this all right?
Yeah.
I had a home that was then I wrote the change guidebook, and I talked about how he didn't do his sheets for the year and stuff like that. But really had a hiccup right here, going, oh, did I do everything okay? Did I fail this child? Have I been a horrible mother? Am I okay? Am I? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
on
I
top
feel
of
you doing
all,
that in your book, though.
well, thank you. And that's what I wanted to bring that through in the book to talk about it, particularly in the chapters on motherhood, that like you said, there is no manual. There is so much pressure to be a perfect parent, to do it all the right way. And what is right is constantly changing. So, oh, we're all supposed to be gentle parenting. Oh no, now there's some research that gentle parenting actually has some negative consequences and we got to move back this way. And you're trying to navigate all of that. And at the end of the day, you're doing fine, you're just doing fine. And the self-forgiveness, the self-compassion is so important because you're never going to do it perfectly, so you just have to trust yourself to do the best with what you know and learn on your feet.
Yeah. Well, I think I long-winded that I really would have liked to have had this book when my kids were smaller, because I would have felt like, okay, I'm not alone in all of these different moments
Yeah.
of insecurity and unsure with my, just you made up words, and I just probably made some up too. You're just unsure of yourself and it's hard.
Yeah.
And everybody's different, and every family's different, and there's no one size fits all way to parent kids or be a parent or be married or anything. So tell me about the chip thing. Why are there potato chips on this book? And what does beyond self-care potato chips mean?
Okay, so this actually came from my therapist. I love my therapist. I've been with him for 3 or 4 years now, and I went to him because we had had a family crisis, and I had sought him out to get help for this family member, and then that family member declined the help. And so while I'm in contact with this therapist and now this family member is declining the help, I was like, "Can I come? Can I take that appointment?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So I came, um, and he's gotten me through a lot through my separation from my husband and then through our reconciliation and doing my inner child work and all like that. But there was a day where I was sitting there in therapy with him, and he said, "Amber, you can't get full on self-care potato chips." And I was like, "Say that again?" And he
There
said,
it is.
you keep looking for these little morsels of things that are going to fill you up, things that you think will make you feel good, but they're not going to, because you're not actually taking care of yourself. You know, you're putting on the veneer of taking care of yourself. You put on makeup every day, you shower every day, go on walks, you exercise and all like that, and that's all great. He was like, that's it's not to minimize those things, but doing those things without going deeper, doing things that are hard, learning how to do battle with your inner demons, heal your inner child, set your boundaries, communicate your needs. That's self-care. That's the real self-care.
Yeah.
And it had rolled off of his tongue. And I asked him, I was like, did you just, is that something that y'all talk about in therapy spaces? Is that a term? And he said, no, I just kind of came up with it. So as I was thinking of the concept for the book, that phrase just kept coming to my mind. And so I reached out to my therapist and I said, would you mind if I used this for the title of my book? And he was like, yeah, go ahead. That would be amazing. So I initially titled it just Self-Care Potato Chips. And everyone was like, you got to put something in there in front of that so that people don't think you're advocating for the self-care potato chips. So then it became Beyond Self-Care Potato Chips. But the metaphor is essentially like, you can keep going to the closet and pulling out potato chips, and you will eat that entire bag, and you'll be done, and you'll feel bloated, and maybe you'll feel a little bit emotionally better because you just ate this food that just feels good. But you're going to be hungry again in just less than an hour. Then you're going to have to go feed yourself again, and you're not actually nourishing anything. It's just empty calories. And so what I talk about in the book is what nourishing self-care is.
Yeah.
Self-care potato chips are fine and they're good, but you got to get the casserole in there too.
The vitamins with the chips.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What did you put in the book that is going to teach us to actually self-care? Because I think people do think that, just like with a gratitude journal, people write 5 things they're grateful for and be done with it and walk away and things like that. But I like this type of stuff on autopilot. So it becomes who you are as a method of how you operate. You learn it and learn it and learn it and learn it. And then you are like, okay, this is who I am and this is the way I am.
Yeah.
But it's tough to get there, isn't it? Especially with the whole boundary thing and saying what you really want without making somebody else mad or feel bad or you feel
Yeah.
bad or, you know.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. I was watching one of your TikToks, and you were talking about your the 444
Yeah,
newsletter, and you spoke about how there's four things for self, four things for humanity, four journal prompts, and four affirmations. And you said in the middle of that, you said, "I know some of you guys say everything I talk about is just puppies and rainbows. So if you want, you can journal about something, negative if you want, but this is positive." And I just was so struck by that because I do think people want to kind of they want to vilify growth mindset and positive mindset. It seems like nobody likes a happy person in the same way that they say like
right.
everyone loves a baby and hates an old man. In some ways, when I was getting the most reach and views on my platform was when I was at my absolute lowest, right? People love watching someone going through a hard time, and they love you talking about going through a hard time, and they love talking about their hard times. And when you start doing the work that you're talking about in your literature and what I talk about in my book, you start to evolve. You start to realize I don't have to think that everything is puppy dogs and rainbows. I'm allowed to say this just sucks. However,
Yeah.
there is something that is useful and good about saying, okay, yes, this can suck. And also, what lessons can I learn from this? You talk about the, oh, what do you call it? It's not the gratitude reframe, it's the gratitude
The
flip.
gratitude flip. Yeah, where it's not like, oh, I have to go do that. I have to go pick up the kids from school or whatever. It's in my book. But you frame everything as like I get
I
to.
get to,
And
yeah.
it's like a little bit of mind trickery with I really kind of mean that though. Because if you stay down all the time talking about all your problems and all your everything and whoa, boo is me and all this stuff, you're gonna stay there. And it's really helpful to shift people to recognize all of that, go through it, talk about it, deal with it, and all those things. But to have the element of moving forward is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes people want to label that incorrectly label that as toxic positivity, and they don't understand that that's not what that word actually means.
Right.
But you can get caught in this. It can become difficult talking about change and growth, about spirituality, about self care, because sometimes people want to say, "Oh, this is just all puppy dogs and rainbows," and so my book is trying really hard to bring some balance to the conversation
Yeah.
and say like, hey, it's we should talk about the hard stuff, and the book primarily talks about the hard
It
stuff,
is.
but let's also remember that through all the hard stuff there are learnings. And again, abuse, neglect, those things we don't have to try to pretend like there's a learning opportunity there. We can set those aside. But I'm talking about the everyday challenges and woes that we go through that are so painful, that hurt so deep. There is a way to look at those and go, how can I grow from this? How can I evolve? What can I learn? How can I be and do better from this? And that's not toxic. That's actually incredibly healthy. And that's what we should be doing. And so the book really goes into here's the hard stuff we have to do, and here's how we sort of not just reframe it, but go a step further and try to turn it into something like a practical
Yeah.
approach.
Now, when you talk about other people in your book, let's just say your husband for a minute,
Uh-huh.
Charlie, right?
Yes.
Um, did you have to say, look, I'm going to write about you?
I don't feel like that was ever a very specific conversation we had. I never came to him and was like, is it okay if I share these stories? But it was him who encouraged me to write the book. And as we navigated our separation and then our reconciliation, he was the one who was like, we have this great testimony and I want you to share. He was like, you can be honest, you can talk about the nitty-gritty stuff, and we hope to one day write a book together about this, about the process of what we've been through as a couple, both being in therapy and all like that. So no, I do know that he was totally on board, but there was never like a, hey,
There's
is this
never,
okay?
but because I remember when I first started writing, a family member who shall go unnamed name said, "What are you going to write about me?" And I'm like, wow, that's presumptuous in a number of things. I'm probably not going to, number one, and second, there's nothing in here about you. So sorry to disappoint. But is that
Yeah.
funny how people do that? It's like, what are you going to write about me? And then they get all worried. It's like, relax. That's on you, not me.
I was anxious because I talk about my upbringing a little bit. So I was nervous talking about my parents,
Yeah, me too.
um, which is hard, right? Because there's a book that I really love, and it's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents.
Hmm.
And it talks about in there that you can speak about your parents and ways that you wish your upbringing was different without betraying your parents. It's not betraying them to talk about how you wish things were different. So in the book, I did mention certain things about my upbringing, and I always tried to make sure that my parents are both still living, right? So I want them to feel like they can hand this to their friends and say, read this and feel proud of it and have nothing be in there that they're ashamed of. And so but I was a little scared of a few chapters in there where I speak about them specifically, but they've both read it and they were really happy and really supportive. And so that was the only part that I was like a little bit uncomfortable
Yeah,
about.
yeah. I've got my mom and dad in my books too, but yeah, it's all good. Yeah, my father was a stroke survivor for from 2004 to 2018. My mother was a primary caregiver for all of those years,
Oh,
and but we had a pretty cool childhood actually. I'm in the middle of 11 kids, so
oh,
it was a huge family,
oh
a
my
huge
goodness.
family. So, but yeah, so you could see the question now. What are you going to write about us?
Yeah,
You're all
yeah.
good. Don't worry. No, no spilling the beans. It's all good. Um, yeah, it's funny. Um, like I have so many questions for you here from balancing marriage and motherhood, family, friendship, all of the things that are in the book about different aspects of your life. Is there one area in there where you're like, I really wish somebody would pick this book up and read this chapter, or this section? Very nice. Chair is squeaky. They
I would
move.
say,
I got all comfortable talking to you, by the way. Sorry. I was like,
I know it's
oh
great. I
my
feel the I feel the
God.
same way.
Yeah.
So the book is broken into several sections. There's self-care in our romantic relationships, our friendships, our families, so like the broader family, in the workplace, in our communication, and in our mental health.
Yeah.
And I feel like the one that I think is definitely relatable to everyone, because not everyone has had a spouse or even had a big family or even had a job, but everyone has had a friend, and everyone has had good friends and bad friends.
Yeah.
And I really love that section of the book because it leads off with this chapter called Crabs in a Bucket, and it's based on crab theory. And it's this concept that if you put a whole bunch of crabs inside of a bucket, there will be some who stay at the bottom and some who attempt to climb out to safety. But rather than allowing some of the crabs to get out, what the other crabs will do is reach up and yank them back down. So that although some of the crabs could have gotten out and survived, they all end up crushed and perishing at the bottom of the bucket. And I lead with that chapter because I think a lot of us experience that in our friendships. We've all had those people who came along claiming to be our friends, who like maybe could have even been our frenemies, people who pretended to kind of be on our side. And everyone loves an underdog, right? Everyone loves you when you're down, like I just said. Everyone loves when you're saying that you're going to write a book or saying you're going to start a business. But
Yeah.
when you actually do it, when you actually get your book deal, or when you actually start making money in your business or whatever it may be, you find there are some friends who suddenly aren't very supportive, who suddenly are wanting to pull you back down.
Yep.
And so that chapter speaks about crab theory and what that's like. And then I go into friendship breakups, and sometimes you're being the one broken up with, and sometimes you're the one doing the breakup, and some practical tools for navigating that. And then the final chapter in that section is called At the Table, and it's about getting the right. You speak a lot about having the right mentors and guides, because Yeah, because anything we do, success, happiness, spirituality, none of that happens in a vacuum. And it's so important that you have the right people at the table. And so I go into kind of finding the right people for the table and how you need to be looking for safety, for communication, for mutual positive regard. And if you're not getting those things, then these people don't belong at your table.
Yeah. I love that whole section, and I'm going to take it a step further and have you talk about this. You know, there's a whole chapter in there about your business because you had a different business, a baby business before,
Hmm.
and exactly what happened to you has happened to me twice now through owning Best Ever You. Um,
Oh.
so many I could write a whole book about all the crap that I've endured with owning Best Ever You. And I don't go on TikTok and talk about it or go on Instagram and talk about it very much, but I'm starting to think, you know, maybe I should because you know, I've been copied. I've been, you know, I thought it had somebody come in here and help me, like actually like, oh, I want to help you and do everything. And they turn around and open up the exact same thing. I'm like, wait a minute. You just took, and I felt like such an idiot at moments, like so naive and so like almost like hard on your sleeve.
Hmm.
And you don't want to toughen up to be, you know, scared of people. You know, this I'm not that human. I'm still the same people can come in and say, "Hey, do you want to help me?" And I'll be like, "Sure," you know, kind of thing, and be oblivious to what's happened before almost. But I even had one person who I read. So I quit this job in the financial services industry, started Best Ever You. People, this is in my books and things like that. But I was into it probably a month and I got this phone call and this guy goes, yeah, so I own everything, all the domains that are best. So I'm going to be needing you to just sign over best ever you to me, besteveryou.com to me. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. He's like, well, I own everything best on the internet. I'm like, I really don't give a shit. You know,
Right.
I don't care, you know, kind of thing. I'm like, you could own everything and, you know, and whatever. And I don't care. I registered that domain. It's my business idea. I'm sorry, it's mine. Anyway, I just completely pissed him off. He started screaming at me and he goes, listen, lady, you are nothing but a washed up 40-year-old soccer mom who's never going to make it, never going to do anything. And all the things you're thinking of are never going to happen. And then he just paused and I wish I would have said something way more intelligent. It's one of those moments where you want to go back and go, oh, yeah, well, you know. And anyway, what I said was this. I said, oh, yeah, well, my kids never played soccer. Just
I don't know. I think that was a pretty good one.
what a dick, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
You
Oh
know,
my
and
gosh.
sorry I just said that, but you know, you're just like, wow. And then you have a moment after that where you're like, you are like, what just happened kind of thing. But then you start the self-doubt creep. All that's in your head, just going woo,
Mhm.
woo, 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 through your head going. And I walked out and I'm like, do I suck? Should I not be doing this? Should I go get a job? Should I really do a podcast? Should I write book? You know, everything about yourself comes right into question when somebody like that does that to you, unless it maybe happens once or twice and you go, aha, you are a mind yucky walker. You so I always equip everybody now with earplugs and bubble wrap. I do. Even my kids, I'm like, here's the earplugs for all those kind of people, and here's the bubble wrap because it's so bumpy out there. Tell me what happened. Tell us all what happened to you, because I have a sneaking suspicion, having read what I read in your book, that it's pretty much kind of the same.
Yeah, it was very much the same. And it's I love your bubble wrap analogy because I talk about in the book truth trenches, which
Yeah.
is that we're going to surround you in a trench of truth that the lies of the world have to pass through before they can get to you. And refined by the truth, they can't hurt you as much anymore. And it's exactly what you're talking about, that self-doubt. We all kind of carry around our own self-doubt, right? And we try to push it down. We're like, I know that this is not valid, and so you push it down, and then someone comes along and just suggests that this thing that you feel self-conscious or self-doubtful about could be true, and then it all comes flooding out. And so you have to have that truth trench. But yeah, I had the exact same thing. This was a woman who had been a member.
A
Hmm.
woman?
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Had been a member of my community for a long time, had been a fan, a supporter, and she wanted some help starting a business, and I wanted to help her. I said, sure, absolutely. Like, let's. I can't give a lot of time, but I can mentor you, whatever that is. And looking back, kind of like you said, sometimes you feel naive or stupid. I should have asked, like, so what kind of business are you starting? What are you doing? But I didn't do that. And so it was very shocking to find, after I had given her some help, taught her how to set up a Shopify account and like all these other things, she launched a business that was in direct competition with mine.
Lovely.
Which, I think that when you're a person who's trying to navigate the world and give people benefit of the doubt, I was like, okay, well, that feels kind of bad, but also competition is good. Like, it's a free market. Good luck. But then, man, it just snowballed from there. She started lifting copy off of my website, and I knew it because I had typos in my like on my website, because I was writing all my copy back then, and she would have the same typos, which all that I kind of dealt with. But then everything really came to a head when I launched my own line of diaper bags and accessories, and it blew up. It was really successful, and for some reason this just really bothered this woman, and so she started sending her friends into my community, bad mouthing me to my customers behind the scenes. Then she started trashing me publicly.
So rude.
um, and it was this really bizarre. And so what I talk about in the book is called the reaching hand, right? Like, you reach back to bring someone else up the mountain behind you, and rather than them stepping up to where you are, they try to yank you back down. And
That's
that
the
was
best area.
that was what I experienced then, was just somebody who, I was happy for her success, but she wasn't happy for mine. And she came into the ring with me to compete with me. I didn't ask to compete with you. And then was mad that she wasn't winning. And so it was just a really odd time of my life. That
But it
I'm like,
happens all the time, though. I mean, it's what we talk about. It's like high school.
yeah,
Depending on what year you went to high school, people are mean. It used to be women, clawing at each other to get what we want and trampling all over each other and things like that. And when you don't do that, it's lovely. it's
yeah,
it's like, let me help you out, or be honest. Like, I really admire what you're doing and I want to copy you. Can you help me set that up? I would have appreciated that more than just going around and doing it in the background. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, because I've had people come to me and say, I want to be an author like you. Can you help me get set up? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then the book comes out and it's different than mine, or, whatever. But I haven't had anybody like be like, okay, let me copy percolate and put it out there again. But in general, most people are really sweet about it, and they just want to know how you did something or how you're doing something so that they can have a little bit of it too. But the
right.
full on mooch, copy and revise is an interesting creature when you come across them, isn't it?
It really is. I'm
Yeah.
like, I would love for people to be inspired by me, but inspired by and just ripping straight off of, is that those are two different things.
Yeah.
And it's not great when we do that to each other.
Oh,
Let's not do that.
no.
But thankfully that's been few and far between. For the most part, I've been really fortunate to just have amazing,
Yeah.
wonderful women around me, and wonderful men too. But you do meet those people every now and then.
Every once in a while. And it's important to talk about that because, we're on, a lot of things are online based, and it's not perfectly safe being online all the time, no matter who you are and things like that. So it's important to have these conversations. Make sure you check references, make sure you check other people. Now, when I do business with people, I definitely let things sit a little bit
Mm,
before I jump right in. I used to be very like, let's do that. Let's do that. I still am, but I do let things, just sort of percolate a little bit
as
before
it
I
should.
jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, and my husband says, hire slow, fire fast. And I've been trying to learn that, you
Yeah.
know.
Hard. It's hard too when you need help or you've got momentum or it depends. Yeah. Anyway, so don't copy her book if you're following Amber. It just, it'll come out like self-care for candy bars or something. It's like, no, don't
Right.
do that. Not okay. Not okay, people. I have questions in front of me from, I think they're from the publicist, maybe. I think they're from Lindsay at
Mm.
HCI. Isn't Lindsay amazing?
Oh my God, I love her.
I
I
do too.
love her.
She's so helpful. So hi, Linz. But I think one of the things that I should ask you about is how you've changed since writing the book. Like,
Mm.
what you hinted at it earlier. Like, so what version of Amber are we on compared to the version that you had? And that's a really cool way of putting that too, because probably every year we're a different, probably a minute to minute, maybe even.
Yeah. I can't claim that. A friend taught that to me. He said, "Oh, well, that was from a few Ambers ago." And I was like, "Oh, what a
Oh,
genius way to put
yeah.
that." So I think the biggest difference for me is that when I was writing, I tend to intellectualize, right? As a lot of successful women do. I'm sure you know. We intellectualize things, and we believe because we've intellectualized them that we understand them. And so, in writing the book, as I read it now, I realize how aspirational the book was. That it was like I understood all of these principles at an intellectual level. But looking back, I can see how I was still really struggling to actually apply those things in my own life. And so, even I remember writing it and feeling like an imposter at the time. And I have a whole chapter called, imposter syndrome. Um, Feeling like an imposter because I could see the words that I was writing and then also seeing dysfunction in my own life and being like, if only there was a book that like told me how to navigate this that I happened to write. And so now where I am at, also just like a strange sort of side note is that over the last year, probably starting in February and culminating in June of this year, I've been on a really major spiritual journey. Really like I got into it just into meditation and yoga and all these things. And it's really brought some chill to my life. And I think being more chill has enabled me to focus on actually internalizing these things from the book. And so now I'm in this place where I'm seeing health and function and goodness coming out of me that is directly from the things I talk about in the book. Because one of the things that I say in there very often is that self-care blossoms outward. And so there is this sort of toxic self-care culture, particularly in social media spaces, that is very hyper individualistic, very me focused. It's very much, going no contact with someone the moment that they upset you. It's devoid of things like conflict resolution and cooperation and all of these things that are required for us to have harmony in our relationships. And so now, as I've been learning how to put these things that are in here into practice,
Yeah.
I'm actually having harmony in my marriage and with my children and with my friends and at work. And there's still many things I'm working on, but it is really nice to see the growth that has taken place since the time I wrote the book.
Yeah, when I read the book, I'm like, this is really raw. And I was wondering, and it's okay. I mean, it needed to be that way. It screams like I'm struggling and trying to figure this out, kind of
Mm.
thing. It does. It's just like, okay, I went through this and this and this and this and this, and here's how we navigated and things like that. You can feel your journey that you're on, for sure. So it's interesting. I said to my husband before, I'm like, I wonder what she's going to be like now, because the book was 2 or 3 years ago. I want to know who she is now. So I'm glad you just answered that, and you're continuing on and so forth, because it would be hard. It would be hard to be the book. I mean, the book's fabulous, but it would be hard to be there all the time, wouldn't it? In
To be
everything that's going to be in that book and situations and things like that, and stay there without the growth.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why the end
And
of each chapter is so nice. It's like, here's some strategies with your swim
right,
crutches.
because you do, as I was saying earlier, you do sometimes find in these healing and mental health communities, there can be this perseveration where people are just I don't like the phrase circling the drain, but I can't think of a better one right now, where they're just sort of like centering on their pain, which is important and valid, right?
Right.
That is an important part of the process, is having your feelings validated and told that what you're going through is real and it happened and it's okay and it sucks. But then you got to get yourself out of that. And something that I loved about your story about your dad and the ABCs, and
Yeah.
when he got to F, and oh, it was a bad word, but I changed it to faith, and that really resonated with me because I feel like, when are you saying that F word? It's when things are going really, really bad, right? Like that's when you're saying that F word. And what do you need in that moment is you need faith, and whether that's a spiritual faith in like in God or any other kind of deity, or whether it's faith in yourself, faith in others. That's what you need in those other F word moments,
Yeah.
And I love that story so much.
Yeah. He was cool. My dad was very cool like that, though. He was such an inspiration in how to survive, navigate, and be resilient.
Mm.
He used to say, "Who did I piss off to have this happen to me? Who did I piss off to have this? Because he was the nicest guy, everything. He used to be so down on himself, like, what did I do wrong? And we used to be
Mm,
like, nothing, just, shit happens,
yeah.
and unfortunately this has happened to you, but and then he would make the best of it. And he would find, he's like, okay, here's what I'm living for. Because he was, if you saw what he went through and were there in the ICU and things like that, you'd be like, how's this guy going to get out of the ICU?
Mm.
Let alone live and then go back and ring the bell, see his daughter, my younger sister married, and my younger brother married, and all these things that he had to live for and stuff. But yeah, that was a moment right there. He looked at us like, it was funny. He was really, really, really smart. And in that ABC moment, he was almost flabbergasted with how stupid the exercise was. Like, you guys think I'm this debilitated that I've lost my mind too? Are you kidding me? Kind of thing. He was mad. And so it was funny because he was mad, but this joyous list of things to survive. So I couldn't tell whether he was being facetious or accurate, but teaching, he was teaching, but it was pretty funny. In that moment, I'm like, what the heck did he just, said platypus. Really? So one of my books is there's a aardvark and a platypus, find your inner aardvark and platypus to survive, and
Oh,
all the letters there for. But thank you for saying that, because yeah, good old dad. He's always here. He's cool. He was really cool. Um, okay, tell me about. I have so many questions about. Okay, when you look at you, it doesn't seem like there's a darn thing that you would ever have to be worried about. And this happens
oh,
to us. Just hang on. Yeah. You know what I mean? You go to the
yeah.
doctor and people say, you look good. I've
Hmm.
gone to the doctor before with full on strep throat, and they've been like, you look good. I don't, oh, yeah, you have strep throat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about what, okay, I'm going to probably, you can pass on this too. Tell me about like your childhood, like what brought you here. Like there's the book, what has happened to you? Like, tell me about you a little bit more. We know you're an author. We know you have this story. We know this, but what brought you here? What brought you to being a doctor of psychology? What brought you into this mindset space? TikTok, all these things. Just navigate us to tell us who you are.
Sure. So, and this is the part that can get tricky for me to talk about.
I get it. Yeah.
But one of the things that I feel comfortable talking about is that in my house, growing up, I had one parent who was diagnosed with depression, and another parent who clearly needed to be diagnosed with anxiety and refused to get that diagnosis. And so there was a lot of dysfunction in the household because my mother, who had been diagnosed with depression, had a very contentious relationship with her mental health,
Yeah.
in that at the time, there was still a lot of shame and stigma around things like depression and anxiety. And so she was constantly trying to distance herself from that. And the way that she did that was to not take her medicine, to not go to therapy, and she would go through times in her life where she was really devout about those things. And then she would go through times in her life where she wasn't. And when she wasn't taking good care of her mental health, there was a lot of dysfunction that would happen in our family as a result. Then you add to
Right.
that my father, who had anxiety, that if he had had that diagnosed, then we would all understand where his behavior was coming from. Some of the, as a person diagnosed with anxiety myself, some of the neuroticism, the irritability, these are all things that can come from anxiety. But often he just seemed mad and irritable and impatient all the time. And so as a child, watching my father and being like, he's so mad and I don't understand why. If there had been a label for that, I'm just like, oh, he's anxious. I
Yeah.
don't think I would have internalized some of that stuff. And so, same with my mom, when my mom's depression was not being treated, often, I internalized what was going on with her as being my fault, my problem, my thing I needed to fix. And a question I still have in my mind was I parentified by my parents, or did I parentify myself? Like, did I decide to become the parent? But I often felt like it was my obligation to take care of, particularly my mom. And she was a brilliant woman, a successful woman. I don't mean to like infantilize my mother. She's a kick-ass
Yeah.
lady, but I felt like when it came to her mental health, she needed me to take care of her sometimes. And so I was like, when I got older and I realized I had inherited some of this, that like I can be depressed, I can be anxious, I was like, then I want to understand this to the greatest degree. And I knew better than to become a therapist, because I was like, I think I'm messed up enough that like I don't think I'm the person that needs to be telling people how to go live their life. The irony of that, now this is my book, is just now landing on
Oh,
me.
good. Yeah.
But I was like, I don't think I
That's
should be
how
a
we learn, though. I'm telling you, we heal and learn through what we're doing. So it's all good. I got the same thing. People, I've had that said to me so many times. Why you just ignore it. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get a PhD in cognitive psychology. I'm going to study self-regulation and emotion regulation, because if I understand these things at the biological level, then everything will make sense to me. My parents' behavior, my behavior, other people's behavior. And then what do you know? I got the degree, and still nobody made sense. Everyone's crazy. I'm crazy. We all act in
Yeah.
unpredictable ways that having a degree really can't fix. And so it was then that I was like, oh, just, the COVID happened, and I was like, I think I'm just going to get on the internet and talk about some of this stuff. And so
Yeah.
that's what I started doing. And
Brilliant.
I built an audience trying to be. I was told I had big sister energy, and
You
that
do.
was what I was just trying to bring. Like, hey, it's your big sis just giving you a little life lesson, and it kind of stuck. And it's been what I've really come to enjoy, is just trying to bring sort of heady mental health concepts and distilling them in a way that is relatable and hopefully sometimes funny, hopefully sometimes emotionally evocative, and then teach people something.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've put out there where you're like, I wish I wouldn't have done that?
I'm sure if I'm pausing, it's because there's a lot of them.
I'm always nervous. I'm like, what are people going to say and do? Sometimes you get trolled too. It's like
Yeah,
especially my age, you get trolled kind of good. Like, get off of here, you're old or whatever. People are sometimes mean, but quick delete button fixes that, and you just
yeah,
move on. It's like, oh, okay, you're not my people's.
that's true. I did go through a phase that I'm not very proud of, which is, I had just separated from my husband. I was very unhealed at that time, very hurt and angry, and just waking up to like real feminism,
Mhm.
which is funny because what I was doing was not real feminism at all, but like
Yeah.
really coming to understand the role of patriarchy and white supremacy and like all these things, and learning about them all at once. And what happened is I became just very angry at men, and
Yeah.
so I spent a lot of time talking about. I would always say, I'm talking about women's issues. I'm talking about women's issues, but I was doing it in such a combative and nasty way that I was a real turnoff to men who really could have benefited from what I had to say, and also to women who were like, I have men who I love, and you're coming across so nasty. And so I do regret that time of my life. And it's why when I pitched to Psychology Today to have my own column there, I pitched the idea of compassionate feminism. That's the name of my column. And so now I'm trying to pay for my past sins and talk about concepts that bring men into the conversation in a loving and gentle way, recognizing that men are the victims of all of these structures
Wow.
too.
I'd love to be interviewed for that column as the mother of four boys,
Oh my
because they're
gosh.
all. I mean, if you ever get a chance to do that, please boot me in,
Yeah.
because as a mother of four boys, I cannot believe what our boys have endured, and they're all straight A. One's a college athlete. One's, they've got master's degrees. They're so sweet. They're so this and that, but people are very biased
Yes.
against boys. Like my college athlete, people just assume he's a bad student. It's like, wait a
Mm.
minute, he's got two master's degrees and a presidential award, and he's a straight A student who went to Georgetown. And
Yeah.
it's very interesting. So if you ever get a moment to include me, I would absolutely cherish that moment.
Oh,
Not
that would,
to check your column or anything like that, but to just be included would be lovely.
no, I
Um,
would love
I've
that
always
because,
wanted an opportunity like that to talk about boys,
yeah.
other four boys, to talk about some of the things that they go through, that are very different. But just people just assume they're bad students too.
Hmm. We,
That's
we,
really interesting.
we've come to a weird place in society where we look at men, and particularly white men, and we say, oh, you are the most privileged, so therefore you have no struggles. And when those men try to talk about their struggles, we sometimes will do this thing where we're like, don't you dare, don't you dare act like
I'm
you
a
have
girl.
it hard.
Yeah.
Right. And I was doing a lot of that, and then realizing like patriarchy, And the reason why we have to abolish these structures, and I know this isn't what we're talking about here, but like,
No, it's important, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Just keep going.
yeah, the reason why we have to abolish these structures is because they hurt everyone, and men are not exempt from that. And so, I mean, men are committing suicide at an alarming rate. The amount of pressure that is put on men to provide, there are men who would rather go commit suicide than come home and tell their wives that they lost their job. And these are all the result of patriarchy and the harms that they do to men.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because I was reading, you touched on this in your book just slightly, and I wondered if you were going to come on here and be angry. I said that to Peter too. I'm like, I don't know her well enough yet. I've never pre-interviewed, and if she goes all out against men, kind of thing, I hope she doesn't do that. And I'm like, she looks all smiley and happy and things like that. I don't see it in any of her stuff, but there's a touch of it over here. And you were talking about, and then I read it, and I'm like, oh, she's talking about what she went through after that, and how mad at, like almost like mad at the world you were in a way in certain points. So I caught on to it, and I'm like, no, that's not her, kind of.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring it up. I'm like, it made me like go, oh, I get that way too. I
Yeah.
get so, but I get so defensive of men.
Mm.
I'm like, oh yeah, well, you try going and cleaning that up, because every time the garbage gets taken out here, it's not me doing it. There's so many things that we take men for granted for these days. And I
Mm.
just want to be all like opposite of it all. Like, I
Yeah.
appreciate women doing their thing and women to go, go, go. But don't leave this whole crowd out now. It's like, no, 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 no.
We need
It's
to
like
be
go, go,
bringing,
go, and no, no, no. It's like bring
that's
them
right.
together. Yeah.
We need to be
So,
bringing them along. And what's
yeah.
crazy is again, this was when I was at my most ignorant about feminism, was when I was like, exclude the men, keep them out. And it turns out that, the most prolific thinkers and writers, bell hooks being one of them, their whole premise was like, men are harmed by patriarchy too, and we must include them. They must be included. And so, and a part of my healing journey, part of reconciling my marriage, and my husband going to therapy and showing me, like, I talk about it in the book, so many things that I attributed as being negative qualities about him. I put this negative label on his behaviors. And when he went to therapy, discovering that there were these deep-seated issues from his childhood that underpinned so many of these things that I assigned a negative label to. And it was a big part of healing my relationship with men, realize. And as a boy mom myself, I have a son.
Yeah.
It's very important that I did that work. And I don't think we're having that conversation enough.
Yeah, no, I don't think we are either. And I don't know that I'm totally, I feel more experiential about it rather than educated about it. I don't know that I've ever taken a class in this or that to learn about it more. You just sort of feel it, and you feel your mom paving the way with a job with 11 kids. You feel your mom, doing things. But, I can tell you that I feel personally like we've turned out 4 boys. They know how to cook, clean,
Oh,
love, like I can go through 10 things that they're very self-sufficient human beings with compassion towards women and support towards women. Not, I'm going to squash you like a bug. Well, I
mm-hmm.
do this or that, none of that going on that we've all experienced over our
Yeah.
lifetimes in various ways. Um, and with particular sensitivity to some of the stories I've shared with them about my experiences with men in the workplace and things that I've gone through. They know all my stories.
Yeah.
So they, and I'm in here lone female. All the animals are girls. It's the
Had to bring
profile
balance
here,
somewhere.
kind of, yeah. But yeah, there's my validation that dogs are girls. But you share these stories about what's happened to you as a girl, and they're like, that's not right, kind of thing. So you feel like there's 4 more people in the world who have love and compassion towards women and are lifting them up rather than whatever whatever it is.
Whatever that
Whatever it
other
is.
thing is.
Whatever
Yeah.
the other thing is, they don't do that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Well, good for
Is
you.
it ever too late to start with all of these self-care things that you talk about in your book?
No. I mean, of course, I would love to go back and tell my 13-year-old self to start now. But no, it's never too late. And I think the beautiful thing about getting older is, I'm going to be 40 in January, and realizing that, like, man, I talk about this in the book. I'm heading into the sandwichy years. the sandwich being when you have parents who are still alive but are getting older and becoming more dependent on you, and you also have children who still need you. And I feel like as we get older, we start to really realize, wait a minute, I can't take care of all of my people when I'm not taking care of myself. And everything that I've been doing through my 20s and my 30s to try to spread myself too thin and try to help everybody and say yes to everything and all like that, um, that hasn't really served me very well. And it turns out I'm not even taking care of my loved ones as well as I could because I'm so burnt out. And so I think women our age are really in a great position to begin this work now, because for once in our lives we're starting to realize maybe all that striving and all that self-sacrifice that I've been doing wasn't really helping me, and maybe wasn't even helping other people. Maybe I've just been running in the hamster wheel, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a that's a chapter in my book, That Hamster Wheel. It's in Percolate, the very
Oh,
first book I did. Yeah, it's but there's a whole hamster wheel thing in there
yeah.
about that. Because um, and I totally agree with you in that it's really hard as women. Let's just talk about women for a second. It's so hard to do everything.
Hmm.
There's so much responsibility on different aspects of your life, from just holding down your own job and career. Then children come into play,
Yeah.
making sure they're okay. Who makes dinner? Who makes breakfast? Who makes lunch? Who makes the kids' lunches? Who cleans? What else is there? Join in on the who. What else is there that we have
Oh
to worry about?
gosh.
Car repairs. Keep going. Let's do the.
Oh,
There's so much. So many
we
things.
have to do the moral lessons. We have to be doing the disciplining. We have to, I mean, like, it just, the list goes on and on.
On and on and on.
There's no
So
end.
so how do you stop doing that? Like I really had a hard time figuring that. My kids were like 0, 2, 4, and 6
Oh
when
my
we came home from the hospital, right? I mean, really, I'm not kidding. Like I can remember in that moment, 4 strollers, 4 car seats, 0, 2, 4, 6, not really that much help
God.
because
Hmm.
I lived in California at the time. I remember sitting there praying for a shower.
Yep.
Like, and then postpartum depression kicks in, and you're like, oh boy. With the
Yeah.
fourth one, I got some interesting postpartum depression that lingered on for a little bit. And it was like, uh-oh, what is this? And it's called like being completely overwhelmed with every single aspect of your life, and not having proper help, not having proper really anything in that moment. I don't know how people do it. I remember in that moment just like crying and being like, I should be the best mom in the world. This should be the best moment in the world. And instead, this is really, really tricky.
Yeah.
Did you have that?
Of course, I still say to this day, I looked at Charlie just the other night and I was like, I don't know how people do it with more than two kids. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
Um, and and dare you say out loud that, hey, I'm not enjoying this mom gig as much as I thought I was going to. Hey, I wish I could have a shower. I
Dare
remember,
you utter that, boy.
yeah,
Oh,
I remember there was this one day, this was a big fight for me and Charlie. I'd been at home with our son all day. And at the time, my son was going to bed at 4 p.m. and waking up for the day at 4 a.m. and then
okay.
was up 12 to 24 times a night. And I was the only one getting up with him. And so I was exhausted. I was smelly. I hadn't eaten. I was miserable. And Charlie came home, and this was early on in our marriage. Charlie came home and he said, I said, can you please take the baby? I just need to go to the bathroom. If I'm being honest, like I just need to go
Yeah,
to the
no, I
bathroom.
I have those moments. Yeah. Can you
And
please?
he said, hold on, let me go take a shower
Oh,
and then I'll take the baby. And I was like, I lost it. I was like, I cannot believe. And no, 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 that
yeah.
was early on in
Yeah,
our
I
marriage. That was
actually had a
pre.
system in place where I would put like a playpen in the bathroom.
You get to that point. You're like, I don't know what else to do.
I got a shower. I don't know what else to do here.
Yeah.
Kind of
But these are the stories that like don't get
anyway,
told.
don't get told.
And then
No,
you tell
they
them
don't.
and you're an ungrateful mom. Well, you shouldn't have
No.
had kids if you still wanted to shower and eat and shit. You know, like
Can I leave that in?
yeah, sure, of course. You know, it's just like,
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And then, prepare the 10-course meal for somebody who's walking in the door from work.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
wild. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So anyway, I just completely related to like everything in your book. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So I don't know how many shades of red I am right now, but yeah, it was, I just remember, I remember that being really, really tough. And I still marvel. I'm like, how do you all do it? And no amount of nanny, no amount of anything really did, I think I told this in my book. I tell this in all my books. My point, I was a financial services executive, right? I would fly around with two small toddlers and a nanny doing my job around the country.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, hotels,
Oh,
yeah, everything. And I'm like, I finally, I don't know if you know my whole story, but I burned my immune system out. Like I have life threatening food allergies. Like
oh
my
no.
immune system completely kablooied. And I didn't know any better. I just thought, this is what we do as women. We do 400 things. So bring it on. Okay, I guess if I'm going to work and have this job, the kids are coming too, because certainly there's who's going to take care of them but me, kind of thing.
Right.
So finally, I got divorced, got remarried, and my beautiful husband of 26 plus years now was like,
Congratulations.
yeah, he's lovely. He's like, I have an idea. Let's just take a rest, kind of thing. And, you do what you want to do, but, let's breathe a little bit here. If you want to
Yeah.
take a break from working so hard, just take care of the kids, or if you want to work from home or whatever, it all morphed into Best Ever You. I mean, I'll tell you though, I got so sick of it when the little one went into first grade. I was like, okay, I've super had enough of my hair on top of my head, no makeup, sweats, the whole, I'm like, oh my God, kind of thing. Um, I was like suits and heels, kind of makeup done, hair done. Let me get a job. He went into first grade. I've got my financial services job, VP, all this thing. I went into four guys fighting. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Mm.
I'm serious, four grown men fighting over their family business. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. So I quit on the spot and I wrote, I wrote, before I did though, I wrote, Best Ever You, Best Ever Me. I'm like, oh, there it is. It's Best Ever You. Because if I'm going through this and I can't be 16 different humans at once, because, the nannies would call me at work and I'm like, oh my God, seriously? I can't even have a job now either.
Nope.
Ah, kind of
Mm.
thing. And I wrote down Best Ever You and I'm like, oh, there it is. There it is.
Mm.
Everybody's going through the same exact thing. We're just all trying to figure out how to navigate doing 600 things at once and be 12 people.
Yep.
And so I quit right on the spot, went home, told everybody, and they're like, what'd you do? I'm like, yeah, I quit my job. I marched up the street and got the domain Best Ever You. And I interviewed a lady who had a baby business at her table. It was my best friend from kindergarten, doing sewing baby bibs at her kitchen table.
Oh.
Jealous that all of her friends were having kids and she wasn't, and giving baby gifts, and she has kids now and stuff like that. But she was so fuming mad. And we put her on Best Ever You. She, got her story going. She's making six figures doing baby bibs at her kitchen table, just an incredible business. And here it is, and podcasting and books and things like that. But, what's our message here to people? Like, you can't do it all. You can do it all. Good luck doing it all. Do what's right for you. Be authentic. I mean, what's the message? See how confusing that is?
Yeah. I think the overall message is one that has become cliche, but sometimes things only become cliche because they are so true and we need to keep hearing them. And that is that self-care is not selfish.
There you
That you truly cannot care for, you cannot do your job right, you cannot take care of your marriage, you cannot take care of your kids and your family and your friendships and everything unless you are deeply and dearly investing in yourself,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're going to be so burnt out that, uh, in these efforts to be great at everything, you end up being good at none. And so when you say, like, you know what, I'm going to stop trying to be great or perfect at everything, and I am going to, I talk about in the article I wrote for your publications, let good enough be good enough
Yeah.
so that you can take time for yourself. And that's a hard thing, particularly for women who have been conditioned to understand that we have to sometimes be 10 times greater than other people just because we're women.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to put that perfectionism down. But I truly think when we put that aside and when we say it isn't selfish for me to take care of myself, it's not selfish to say no. I am allowed to be a kind and caring person and also have limits and boundaries. and one doesn't erase the other.
Yeah.
I think that embracing that is how we actually end up being able to take better care of our people and the things we care about.
You end up being a really good parent that way when it's just
Yes.
a little bit of self-care in the mix. So I remember I used to just sit here and go, okay, we're going to clean the house. We're going to make this elaborate dinner. We're going to take care of all the kids. We're going to go swimming, go to the park, walk the dog, like a list of like 45 things in my day. And my husband would get home because I wasn't working at this exact moment and be like, what'd you do today? And I'm like, here's the list,
Right.
kind of thing. Here's what I did,
Yeah.
And it's like 75 things. He's like, oh my God, how'd you do all that? And it's like, because there's a cape and a superhero logo and, it says mom on the back of it. And yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get tired
You
and
do.
then you have to be careful of yourself and you have to really pull back on some things, let some things go and implement. But yeah. Yeah, it was a dreadful day when I said no to the glue gun at the Christmas party at school.
Oh.
The
Mm-hmm.
poor old PTA. Did you see that on TikTok? That mom, she's like the Venmo mom. You
No.
got to look her up. You got
Venmo
look her
mom.
up. Yeah, she's like
Okay.
I wrote her a note. She wrote me back. I'm like, I'm way older than you, but you remind me of me at the time. If again, 4 small kids, they're like 4, 6, 8, and 10. And I think either the 6 or 8-year-old classroom was like, yes, and you too can be the room mom. I'm like, oh, hell no. No way am I being the room mom on top of having 4 small kids, ages 0 or ages 6 through 10. There's just no way humanly possible. They all have sports. They all have no. And so I'm like, and how much money do you need?
Yes.
Like, here's
Yes.
your check. I'll pay for it all day long. But then somebody signed me up for you. They're like, you have to come in and help. And I'm like, I don't want to. And and I've done my fair share of PTA. Don't get me wrong. I've done it. I've been there, done it enough. And I love them. And I love all the moms who do that and can do 10 million things at once. For me, I couldn't. But they signed me up to do the glue gun for the t-shirt tote bags at the Christmas carnival. And I'm like, oh man, I don't even know what a glue gun. I honestly got, I'm like, a glue gun. I've never used one of these. I don't know how to do this. But it was cutting the sleeves off of a t-shirt and then gluing the things together to give kids tote bags.
Mm-hmm.
And every tote bag I did, man, they came unglued in a second. And pretty soon the kids were coming. So anyway, I'm up there with a stapler.
Oh my gosh.
To this
Oh
day,
my
I'm
gosh.
like, I'm so sorry. I stapled your tote bags.
Well, you know what? And the crazy that we're talking about this now, I'm gonna have to sign off in just a couple
Yeah, I
minutes
know we
because I
got to
have to
go.
go pick up my kids from
Kids,
school.
yeah,
But
we've got fun.
we could have a whole separate conversation about how unfair, how the schools don't have any other choice, but what a terrible position it puts mothers in because it's not usually the fathers who are getting called in for PTA, but there is absolutely no space for like, what do you do if you're a mom who works and you're still expected to show up and do these things? There's this assumption that you don't work, and
Yeah, I've
it's
been
just
through the
like,
mommy wars big time. It was way prevalent back when I was having kids.
oh my
We used to
gosh.
get glares. Anyway, it has been so much fun to
Oh my
just
gosh, it has.
totally talk about every topic known to mankind with you. I hope you come back. We can do more focused shows or whatever you want to do. I'm going to end recording
Okay.
here in a minute. I'm just going to sign off. I'll edit this out and then I'll talk to you for a second. But anyway, I want to, Amber, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh,
Um,
thank
tell,
you.
yeah, tell us how to find you. What are your websites? Where do you want us to go find you in social media?
Sure. So my website is amberwardell.com. And from there, you can subscribe to my newsletter. I sometimes do sneak peeks and things like that. And then I am sensible_Amber on pretty much all social media, particularly Instagram and TikTok. So that's where you can find me.
And then let's hold that book up one more time.
More time. Yes,
Here
it
it is.
releases October 29th. It's available for pre-order now in all the places where you can order books.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Amber, for being here. Thank you for all your
Thank you.
fun, wisdom, raw honesty in moments, and safe space to share, of course, because that was really fun. But anyway, all right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.